paper magic will survive like the heat death of the universe, and will...
Oh, it's a smuggler's copter. Would you like to crew this? And then it crashes because they don't understand arithmetic.
All your cards belong to me.
2 minutes into macing him in the eyeballs, I switched to pepper spray. He's like, that's downright refreshing. And went back to the mace.
Magic is dying. I'm done. Selling everything.
I might be a hoarder. And yes,
I don't have the crayons or glue to explain this to you right now.
What, are you gonna die twice?
Oil will be worthless before magic cards will.
Well, okay, Dr. Man.
That's Mr. Dr. Professor Jason.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Brainstorm Brewery. I know you missed us. We had a week off. It's the first time in...
We don't do that.
I don't even know how many years, actually, that we missed a week. We managed to generally
deeply
rotate.
Ingrained into the corporate capitalist American culture. Like, I think Jason might have taken a couple hours off when his kid was being born. I think Corbin might have podcasted from the delivery room, vlog style. We've been in the trenches for so many years, and just a confluence of medical issues happens to come up for all of us at once. And
But yeah, we are back. DJ is back from Vegas. I'm back from Vegas. Cass has been deep in the wilds of Eldraine trenches at the LGS. I had quite a time at the World Championship. DJ, what's your abbreviated Vegas trip like?
It was one of the slower Vegases I have worked, which is saying something. I don't know if that is... I don't know which factors to prioritize there. It could have been just too many vendors per player. I don't know the exact head count of the event.
Dude, the setup was 2 floors.
Spread out.
Yeah.
It could have just been more players were focused on doing something else or staying home for the year, or they got their festival in a box, or I just know that, or we might have been overstaffed. I just know that we did not have a line at the booth like we've had at previous Vegases. But again, I don't want to contribute that to one. Oh, this Vegas is much more it was still very busy. It was still Vegas. I still saw a lot of people there. There was still very, very happy faces and people doing a lot of very cool things. It was just not as busy as the 2 or 3 most recent Vegases that I remember.
I think that it may have to do, and I don't know if this is a real thing or not, but you're right, it was very spread out. Remember that one last year? It was a year ago when we did the first MagicCon in Vegas. There were lots of lessons to learn from it, but everything was really packed in, pretty tight, etc. And this time it was very spacious. The World Championship was on one end of a hall on one floor. There's another floor far below it, and then things happening sort of around that as well. I saw lines at the artist stations were close to us. I saw lines there pretty much all weekend. And obviously Wizards doesn't say anything about attendance or whatever. But yeah, I think that how spread out it is might make a difference. Also, maybe it means they gave people something else to do besides just selling their cards.
It's also a factor of it was Vegas in September and it was so hot. I think a lot of people didn't go for that reason.
It was okay at night. During the day, though, it was pretty. As Vegas tends to be. But yeah, so that was at the World Championship. Was fun. John Emmanuel Duprat won it. He was somebody who finished second at Worlds a few years ago, losing to Yuta. So it was pretty neat to see him win. I think it's actually a trend. This is something I'm going to go back up and look about. Players who finish second place in the World Championship winning Worlds within the next several years has happened a lot more than maybe I think the pure statistics would suggest, right?
I mean, tell that to Chapin.
Is this like a nickel situation where it's it's not much, but it's weird that's happened twice?
Well, maybe because Javier and Juan Emmanuel, but they're not the only
losing
ones.
In the finals of Worlds has to light the fire so much harder than anything else you could possibly imagine, right? Just getting defeated in the final battle or whatever, you're just well, I gotta run it back.
Yeah.
Also,
you mean you're
always
already
had the chops to win Worlds.
And you're already good, and you're already playing at a high level, so you already have the infrastructure to be good again if you want to be.
Yeah.
If you're really going to commit to it. But yeah, I think it's different in a way that maybe just top 8ing something isn't.
All I know is that I was very, very distant from any of that. Our little vendor, our very large vendor area, I guess, was very, very far removed from the rest of the event. I know I heard some complaints that the few vendors who were in the upstairs area that closed at 7, a lot of players just did not even know those vendors or that space existed. So there were 2 separate spaces. One closed at 7, like the area that Corbin was in, and then my area closed at midnight. And there were a lot of players who sat down with me saying like, "Oh, I didn't know there were more vendors upstairs." And then I heard from those vendors, and they said it was kind of a ghost town, which is crazy for Vegas, but it just goes to show the power of proper signage and just, I guess, area layout and logistics. I don't know, but
it's just queuing theory to like a certain point, right? You just have to funnel people to the right places, then put them in line in the right places, and that drives business. And if you look back to Philly, that event did that very poorly.
Yes, yeah, Philly was the worst situation of that back in February, where we were just, people didn't know where we were.
Well, we know the next MagicCon is in Chicago. Everything after that next year, still a mystery. One would assume that we'll have more of these. They've certainly, coming out of Vegas last year, the discussion was all about the many mistakes that Wizards made. I'd almost be, look, I'm not going to subject myself to this, but go back and listen to the complaints that people had a year ago and follow and see directly how those were followed up on or changed. But it seems
I actually did an interview with 2 other vendors. You can click the link down below to check that out. That was immediately following last year's Vegas, and if you want, you can listen to that and compare and contrast if you went to this year's Vegas, see how the differences line up.
There you go. Perfect. Yeah. So like the Command Zone thing doesn't cost money anymore. I think the live shows probably I've leveled up quite a bit. It was really, really loud.
I was impressed by impressed isn't the right word. I guess slightly positively surprised.
Okay.
Something a degree below impressed.
Yeah,
but,
sure. I think impressed is how you describe that those things you just. But go on.
The fact that the Command Zone was not roped off and players could come and go from the space freely, because the way that the vendor blocks were lined up, I thought that players would have to walk out of a single entry point, a funnel area for the Command Zone to come in and out, and have to walk all the way around to get to the rest of the vendors. But the area was much more open than that, which was nice to see. Then players could just like walk from their table a couple feet.
Yeah.
See us.
Yeah, that certainly makes things easier. And I know people who were complaining about the price support in events, and it did seem kind of terrible. But I also kind of feel like that's what you're signing up for. Like the only EV at a MagicCon that you're paying to get in, if you want to look at it that way, is going to be the sealed 100K that they ran at Vegas, which was filled with just the best limited players in the world who weren't at the World Championship already, and only 105 people were at the World Championship. Or the Secret Lair Showdown.
The rake's going to be high.
Yeah.
Yeah,
you have to expect for the house to take some when you play in Vegas, and
also like the conventions. There's Wizards of the Coast, obviously. There's Reed Pop, which is doing some amount of convention things. Then there's Pastimes, which is running the events. There's just a lot of mouths, right?
There are a lot of moving parts at these. I did think of something that last year's Vegas did much better than this year's Vegas.
Okay.
You want to know what that is? Last year, if you walked in the door as a Black Lotus VIP, you were given 4 packs of the infamous, controversial Magic 30th anniversary product, the $250 booster pack. You were given 4 of those, and the Black Lotus package costed around $1,000. So you were able to free roll your entry. Basically, you'd walk in, you'd walk up to one of the vendors, you'd say, "I'd like $1,000, please," and then they would give you that. And then you basically just got to go on your merry way. This year, instead of that, they gave out, and I will try to say this all correctly in one mouthful, they gave you a random extended art Wilds of Eldraine rare or mythic that was graded at a CGC 10 foil.
Wait, that's what you got this weekend?
Treatment. Yeah.
Interesting. They're giving out graded
got a
cards.
Random extended art. I believe it was extended art.
Yeah.
Rare or mythic from Wilds of Eldraine that had been graded by CGC as a 10, and so it had like a little, like Cass said, it had a little engraving on the back that said like MagicCon Las Vegas.
Yeah.
Oh.
Some of those were apparently very desirable. I know a couple people are looking for the Bunicorn.
Yeah, card's cool.
Yeah, I can imagine that. Like,
it's more novel and like, is it a good thing that WotC handed the Black Lotus people $1,000 when they walked in? Like, probably not, but also like, who cares? I'd rather have something novel and cool and then get their value in other ways for their $700 entry fee.
Yeah, and I mean, we've talked about the various ways to do that with, like, you get to draft with Gavin or get to play Commander with your favorite creator here. Like, there's so many ways to just, like, make that into a real, like, a VIP concert experience. It just feels really weird for somebody to walk up with, like, this slabbed Ristic study that you can't even play in your and it's like, what am I supposed to offer you on that? Like, $100 maybe? I don't know.
I'll offer you $50 or a pair of pliers.
Yeah. Like,
so yeah, that's interesting because that's the thing that Flesh and Blood leans into really heavily. Not just the great, like, not just the grading cards, but giving them to players as a reward. Like,
and so one of the coolest ideas I saw that would have just been like a tiny little tweak to make this into a much more, I guess, experience-focused giveaway is just like, make sure they're all legendary.
Yeah,
just like make it so the cards you get is, there's like, what, 30 legendaries in the set between the commander decks and the whatever. Like, just make it a random legend, and then you have something that you almost certainly want to build a deck around and have a story behind. Like,
and you can actually keep slabbed without impacting a deck. Yeah,
nobody
like, that's
cares
why it
about
works
extended art Faustbane troll. Like, what are
like
you
that,
doing?
That's why it works in Flesh and Blood, because their cards like sit in play from the beginning of the game. And a lot of the decks share cards, so they can have their 5 really expensive cards slabbed in front of them, and it doesn't impact the gameplay. That doesn't work when you're handing people standard rares.
Yeah,
it just seems like such a easy swing and a miss for that. Like,
yeah, well, the Black Lotus packages have seemed to be a swing and a miss quite a few times, right?
Well, you know, Corbin, speaking of standard rares, I want to talk about standard a little bit at the World Championship and how cool it was to watch a standard tournament from home at the highest level and watch the best players in the world play with new cards.
Yeah.
And not, cards from the last 20 years plus whatever the new cards in the new set are. And not on Arena, mind you, but in physical paper card form. I had this moment of realization when I was watching Greg Orange play his top 4 match where I was like, in my head, Greg has always been one of the best to ever play Control, just like one of the best players. But I never really thought of him as like an all-time great, actually. But realizing this is like his 3rd World's top 8 or something, and just watching him play really well, even though he lost, it was a moment where I felt like we were kind of back. We were back in the driver's seat with competitive Magic mattering, even just a little bit. But watching Paper Standard, it's nothing like it.
I like to hear that. I've kind of always thought that Standard was sort of fun. But I've also not built a standard deck in Paper in 15 years. So,
Corbin. Battle for Zendikar released 8 years ago today.
Yeah. It's not that
BFC
long,
did?
Battle for Zendikar was almost, I believe it was 8 years ago, almost to the day.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just wanted to just drive that little nail into your head.
Well, I'm trying to think. I had a standard deck during Amen Keplock because someone asked me to play on their team for...
It's like 7 years or something.
Like an RCQ thing or whatever they were back then. But that was just they kind of like a
we can skip the boring part of your story. I just wanted
So I think it was
damage of time onto you.
Sure, I understand. I think it was a good 15 years. It's been a long time since I had a standard deck, although I have been playing it on Arena. But I agree with you, Cass, that it's really enjoyable to watch standard because it is very different. And your standard of this format's actually good for one.
It's really good,
and two, standard's just always unique, and it makes events memorable.
And from a finance side of things, players in my store are building standard decks again. Like they're going in and buying standard rares for $150 to put in their standard deck because there's an RCQ season coming up next season.
Yep.
We're starting a standard night. Like I'm if you're watching on YouTube, I'm holding up some horned lock whales and a broker's charm because I'm going to play the Greg Orange deck. And players playing standard and caring about standard and opening packs for standard cards is so good for the, I'll say, Magic economy of game stores and online sellers.
It's good for the ecosystem. Yeah, it's
so good for game stores.
And we sell a lot of booster boxes to people who are opening up trying to chase the foil Ristic study or whatever, but what if we just had people opening boxes to get the 4th Mosswood Dread Knight so they can play the green-black deck? Or, they're like, oh, well, I'm at the store, I need a Shield Red to finish out my standard deck. Here's some cards I opened from Commander Masters. Like, that's all good for the game.
And it actually makes prize packs matter, right?
Yep.
We would sometimes do a store credit option at my store, and it's like it's fine. You can price it at an amount that makes sense financially, but at the same time, people are just never opening standard packs in your store. You're never getting to buy those cards. You get what you open when you bust your boxes or whatever, but there's no ecosystem coming in and out. And that's like, that is the volume of standard for a store, because it makes all the prize packs matter, right? It's so, like, the ecosystem's the right word, because it's very, very good.
This goes even deeper from a labor standpoint of, like, you would rather have an employee pull a standard deck than a commander deck, because it's a lot of 4-ofs, and it's a fewer number of set bricks. Instead of, like, go get the one moderately played 7th edition Fire Diamond, and then in the other cabinet get, like, the moderately played foil Commander Masters card, and then it's all 1-ofs, compared to just, like, here are 24-ofs, go. And they're just in 5 different sets.
Yeah.
As a business owner or a manager, if your goal is to serve your customers as well as possible, it's impossible to stock everything for Modern or for Commander unless you have such a scale and so much money. But, like, as a store, if you're fairly small, you could reasonably stock everything in Standard, and it wouldn't be that hard. So you can actually fully serve your customer base instead of just having your customers be like, well, I bought 3 cards I wanted from you, then everything else I got on TCG.
Yeah. So this is where we note again, remember, Standard is now a 3-year rotation. So, if it's bad, that's bad. If the format's good, then that's good. Right now, the format's pretty good. There's a ramp deck that goes over the top. There's control decks. There's aggro decks. The aggro decks may be a little weaker, but there seems to be some actual pillars. There's even combo. So, like, Standard seems to be in a good place that actually will give it the longevity to last through a longer rotation like this. And at the World Championship, Huey Jensen announced a bunch of, a handful of new store-focused Standard tabletop play programs. Store championships and things like that, and like
FNM proper.
And like Cass, you were talking about players at your store are getting into it. Well, now they have something to play with those decks that they're building that matters more than just FNM.
Okay.
Yeah, that's great. All right, well,
this podcast was built on the blood and sweat of teaching you to not, like, hold on to your voice of resurgence until December. That is the meat and potatoes of this podcast. Like,
we are returning. Return with a V.
Yeah, isn't that nice? We're gonna have to start doing standard set reviews for the rares.
I'm super down to do some set reviews. I love set reviews.
Maybe we'll do. Well, the problem is there's a set every other week. But next standard set, let's do it. Next standard set, let's do it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, right now we're going to give you some other picks, and they're going to be some breaking bulk picks. See how I flipped the script there? You thought we were going for pick of the week, but no, it's breaking bulk.
Breaking bulk time. Breaking bulk time. Break.
Oh, yeah, breaking bulk. There's so much good stuff.
It's a pick. Breaking bulk. The end.
I'm gonna just let you sit in your little corner with what you said there, while everyone else, and by everyone else, I mean...
No, this is a spacious room. This is a big corner.
Darksteel, colorless, artifact, uncommon, no reprints. Let me double check the no reprints part. No reprints. I'll even toss you a bone and say equipment.
Spellbinder.
That's an uncommon from Darksteel, you said?
Uh-huh.
Oh, God. I feel like I should know this.
An uncommon from Darksteel equipment?
Correct.
It's not Skull Clamp, so it's irrelevant in terms of power level.
Grafted.
War Gear's 5th Dawn, I think, right?
Grafted War Gear's 5th Dawn.
Also a common, too, I think.
Card's very good.
That card's so good. Does it have an activated ability that costs colored mana?
No.
It's not that cycle.
Yeah, I always think of, like, Vorak Battlehorns and stuff, and I think of weird
Does it have a
equipments.
name we can pronounce?
Yes.
Yeah, that didn't help me at all.
Is it? It's like the weird. Is it the hammer that Piston Sledge is based on? Okay, I got nothing then.
Will it fit inside a bread box?
I don't think so. It's a longer weapon than that. It is a trident. Does that help at all?
We
Light
call
spear
them
trident or
bidents
something?
and
This is Sure Strike Trident. It is a
know that
2-mana
card.
artifact equipment, and it can equip for 4. The equipped creature has first strike, and it can tap, unattach the trident. This creature deals damage equal to its power to target player. So you can kind of just like attack their life points directly.
I didn't know about this one.
Yeah, it's TCG Market's almost $1. Card came
What was the name of this card?
Sure Strike Trident.
Sure
And
Strike
you
Trident.
can
Right?
be
I've-
sure that you will strike them directly if you use the activated ability. I mean, I can
Well-
see it being put into like Pure Steel Paladin-esque commander decks where you load up one creature, get it to 40, and then just they're like, oh, I have all these ghostly prisons. There's no way you can, and I've got my Settle the Wreckage, and then you're like, nah, I'm just gonna burn you out of the game.
Oh, good. I played this limited format, and I've never heard of this card.
Okay, good. I'm not alone.
DJ, you invented this card and paid April King to put it on Scryfall as a psyop.
Bro. That's
It
good.
works. It does say that the creature deals the damage. You can get funky with Lifelink and Infect.
Yeah.
So it as an homage to Jason here, the top commander for this is Evra Halcyon Witness, because that commander makes itself very powerful, and then you
Yeah,
bonk him on the nose, and
Yeah, something about life changing with that thing, right?
Not much else it's getting used in, but it is just that kind of card. That,
There you go. Look,
is being
Sure
picked up by
Strike
a bunch of
Trident is
players.
real. It's real because it's in the spreadsheet.
I'm also
which everyone-
holding one.
It's that's
A
half
likely
as important
story.
as being in the spreadsheet that everyone who supports us at patreon.com
Hashtag proxies are good.
has access. So DJ, you are ruining the Patreon pitch. You're a Patreon pitch ruiner.
DJ's more of a Patreon catcher than a Patreon pitcher.
Everyone go to patreon.com/BSB because now this was maybe DJ psyoping our listeners now, and this was how he's
Because
calling
there
more
are no.
attention.
Just give it to him straight. There are worse places to put your money. Like there are
True.
so many worse places to put your. Like I can name 3 off the top of my head right now. Like I don't know, an ISIS membership.
Do you need a membership to be like? I thought you just kind of showed up and they were like happy to have people.
Maybe
They're selling
I mean,
NFTs on Facebook Marketplace.
It's true.
like you could give it to that. You could give it to Joe Rogan's podcast. He probably has a Patreon. That's a worse place to put your money.
You could buy
These are
a
the
mug
things
with lead paint that says Yowie on it.
Cass, what do you got? Breaking Bulk.
My breaking bulk this week is a March of the Machine White Rare.
Is it the Wrath, like the Sunfall or whatever?
Yeah, I ain't getting
surprised I
cheeky
got
with
that.
it.
There's Sunfall is lit.
So we're talking about Standard being back. This card has a TCG low of 75 cents, and it buy lists for $1.30 in a couple places.
Yeah, it's
Card is
Oh,
a
yeah.
part of the control decks, and it's really kind of a sign that like there is an inverse spread on a lot of Standard cards right now as people start picking it back up. So keep your eye on that. Buy your Sunfalls, destroy all
It's-
creatures, and then incubate some amount.
Exile even.
So
Yeah.
this format made me think very much of like watching it play out at Worlds. Sunfall was just the card, right? Like that was the card, whether you were playing a control deck or the ramp deck or whatever else. That was the card that was the key card all the time, right?
It reminded me. Stock.
Yeah, among
It's
other-
better than Wrath of God.
It reminded me very much of the Tragic Arrogance Collected Company format, where people just spam the boards in different ways, and then eventually someone has a Wrath of some kind, that a 5-mana Wrath that leaves them a little ahead, right? But what's really great about this format is that unlike that format, you can actually go over the top and just cast the Traxa. So the ramp deck can go over the top of the Sunfalls, even though obviously it plays it itself. And then obviously the aggro cards have a lot of resiliency built in. But I'm completely on board with this pick because I think that card is vital to Standard.
Direct low on this is around 4, which is speaks to the difference between TCG low and direct low. Like if you're a local game store owner that just happens to again do a lot of Standard, you're buying these at like 50 cents to $1 and then putting them on TCG direct low for $3.99 and netting like $2.40 or $2.50 after shipping and fees. So
This
pretty
card
good
also
margin.
just was in bulk until recently because everything from March of the Machines was bulk that wasn't on the bonus sheet or a mythic.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, Wilds of Eldraine is like that currently. So I mean, there's plenty of cards from Wilds of Eldraine. I don't know which ones because I'm not good at the Magic card game, but there are plenty of cards in that set that will follow the same trajectory of there's just a lot of these right now, and then a year down the road, we will see those cards creep back up because so many people were focused on the aggravated assaults and the blind obediences and the Rhystic studies of the Wild sheet.
I know we're in the middle of Breaking Bulk, but can I do a little segment?
Yes.
About
We're doing segments within segments today.
Yeah.
You can do a seggy
About bonus sheet sets and how those sets are actually good to open draft boosters of more than set for value.
Oh.
So when I opened March of the Machines, I did the math in my head and I realized that you get more bonus sheet looks per dollar by opening draft boosters than set boosters. And if the bonus sheet has all the value, then it's great. And the other reason it's good is because you get story spotlight cards at a higher rate, like Up the Beanstalk and Surge of Salvation.
Wait. You get story spotlight cards at a higher rate?
Well, because I think story spotlight cards have like a slot in set boosters they can be in or something. It's like why Tamiyo's Safekeeping was really expensive because it's not in all kinds of boosters. Like they're less common in collector boosters maybe. So that's part of why draft boosters are good is because you just end up with more of the uncommons and commons because set boosters are so inconsistent as to how many of each you get. But you also do just get more bonus sheet looks per dollar spent.
Are set boosters generally more expensive than draft boosters?
Yeah.
Yes.
They're the middle
The
tier
rares
between.
are all worth nothing.
Yeah, they're
what
the
it is
middle
worth,
tier between draft and collector boosters.
Card Kingdom recently had a sale on draft boosters for Streets of New Capenna, and they were roughly $50 after the credit conversion.
Yep.
What?
Like-
Wait, what was $50?
Draft boosters of Streets of New Capenna were roughly $50 to $60 that Card Kingdom was selling on their site. If you bought credit off the secondary market and then used that credit to purchase Streets of New Capenna draft boxes, those boxes were roughly $50 to $60, and Card Kingdom was just shoveling them into the fire like a cartoon character.
Which is interesting because New Capenna is going to be in standard for another year. Right?
Boxes. So you're saying the box price was $50 to $60?
For draft boxes, yes. That is how, like...
It's a lot of triomes, you know?
Yeah.
Like-
Ledger Shredder's still in there.
Yeah. Like, yeah, I was just thinking, like, for $50, $60, like, I mean, triomes
those
are not
the
as
cheap triomes. For
yeah,
like,
I agree.
those
They're
are
not
the
as
cheap
much as you
ones.
think, but like, you're just gonna open a bunch of triomes. I don't know. It could be.
You
Like,
could do
it's
a
not
lot
bad.
worse.
Yes.
But it is indicative of, you know, no one has a reason to care about this stuff outside of people opening the occasional booster packs. Like, CK having a pallet of boxes is a problem for CK.
Well, it also turns out that the Magic swag bag that I got from Vegas, because I'm fortunate they give us a swag bag, so I have some insight into what the swag bag looks like for attendees at some level, right? Okay. Sure. Having said that, it was the most random mix of collector boosters, draft boosters, just thrown in. My favorite was 2 draft boosters for New Capenna. A third one? You want a draft? You're going to have to buy that third one. But,
it's meant to chaos draft, obviously.
It's just, but there was some, you know, like Marie of Eldraine, that made sense. Random mystery booster, random March of the Machine collector booster, but nothing like very random assortment that you would say, I think they had a lot of packs to fill these up with. As we're just the haphazard draft boosters thrown into the bag, right? It's not like it's one thing if you get 3 of each of the past 5 sets or whatever, right? But this was just haphazard. So it's interesting. I now have a giant stack of boosters of draft boosters that I will end up using, I guess, to Chaos Draft eventually.
Let's give Watts the benefit of the doubt there, or Reed Pop, or whoever organized this pastimes, benefit of the doubt.
No. Yeah, I don't even know. So
2 Capenna packs is the exact number you need to play Pai Gow. Maybe there's a Pai Gow resurgence. They're trying to psyop that in.
If we were in Vegas and I just completely missed it, that's on me.
You know,
maybe.
Corbin, that's why we only pay you the medium bucks.
Yeah.
It was, when I was working in Vegas, I saw a customer interaction where they were trying to figure out how you're supposed to play the non-Magic version of Pai Gow. Like, they'd heard of the game, just like, oh, I know how to play the Magic one. You crack it, you make and they're like, wait, how does this work with Bicycle? Like, how do you do that?
It was fun. All right. Back to your regularly scheduled Breaking Bulk.
Segment outside of a segment.
This I don't think is going to be too difficult. Let me make sure it's not already been picked yet. All right, I'm clean. This card is from Kamigawa Neon Dynasty, and it is a green common.
Is it Tamio
Yeah,
Safekeeping?
safekeeping.
Yeah, really unlucky how that worked out for me.
Sorry,
I
buddy.
thought if I slow rolled it a little bit. This
I hear
card's
those story
sweet.
Spotlight cards are hot.
Turns out
well, it's
they're
75
not-
cents. It's a cool card.
You can't open non-foils and collector boosters, or at least you couldn't for Kamigawa.
Does Legolas's fancy trick or whatever make this worse because they're kind of the same thing?
Oh,
Well,
I
let's-
mean, like, Tamio Safekeeping's probably generally just, like, worse than a couple other options now anyways, but it's a commander card, so it'll still be like 50 cents to $1.
Then the
Sure.
it's in the similar cards pop up, you know.
Right, like all the blood artists are still worth money.
Right.
Right.
So like if you're playing the well, I actually have an Luna deck, like the mutate stack deck in Commander. Just want a bunch of effects like that. Oh yeah, makes sense. Speaking of LOTR stuff though, Lord of the Rings coming back around for some more holiday sets. It's a lot is probably the safest way to put it.
I
It's a
opened
lot.
this article and then realized that I didn't want to study for the LSAT, and so I closed the article.
Dude, imagine
about
being the
right.
person who has to write these.
I saw it's our friend Adam Staborski. I
Well,
feel
yes.
bad for him. I noticed that authorship at the top.
Yeah.
And I wanted to like mail him some Tylenol or something.
Yeah, the he's got Stibbs has a lot of work on his plate for sure. Shout out to Stibbs. Yeah, Mike Turian is one of the people I see his name attached to this, so he's also got to be responsible for it in some way. But yes, it is these articles, these collecting articles that started off a couple of years ago, or however many years, 5 years ago, whatever it's been now. With we have draft boosters and some set boosters and some collector boosters, and here's the rates. This thing, DJ's right. This is like War and Peace. This is like whoever the Magic author who used to write 47-page diatribes. Oh, this is the Gush. This is the Gush book of collector.
Stephen
articles.
Indian?
Yeah, this is the Gush book of collector articles. Okay, this is absurd.
I think a lot of these articles are just legal compliance because you have to have the odds stated on loot boxes or whatever.
Right.
And it's really funny to think about this as just a legal compliance document.
It's just oh my
It
gosh.
certainly feels like one.
Like DJ's right. Look, we can't even I can't even bullet point it for you because there's scene boxes and they have a checklist of this is in this, this is in this, this is in this, but it takes 3 scrolls on a giant monitor to get through the list.
Yeah.
And so I guess what do you all want from this?
I want it to be simpler, but I know that's not going to happen. So I want to gain the strength, the personal fortitude to pretend this doesn't bother me.
Okay.
That's what I would like.
That's fair. DJ, what would DJ, what do you want from this? Some scene boxes or
I don't want anything. I want to achieve nirvana and
Yeah.
like, personal happiness.
wise man happy. You'll own nothing and you'll be happy. Is that what you're saying, DJ?
I mean, I'm going to buy
don't
4
under-
copies of Legolas's, slang and reflexes or whatever.
I don't understand why this has to be that complicated, and I don't understand how Wizards of the Coast's definition of collectible can stray so far from the average player.
I think the average player is not think of things the same way that you're thinking of them for the average player. Like the average player is a person who collects by going to Target and buying a couple booster packs, right? And so like the collectability of all of this doesn't matter to them, right? This is why it feels like a compliance article, because
you're right.
For 99.9% of people who are going to buy a Lord of the Rings pack, they're just going to like open it and be like, "Whoa, Éomer, I remember that guy. That was
no one's
Carl
studying
Evans."
this
That's
no one's
why,
studying
that's where
the
my
document.
question comes from,
Yeah.
is why it has to be this complicated, because 99.9% of the player base is just going to have, like, they're not going to learn what a surge foil is or how it differs from a scene surge collector foil. Like, why can't we just have the nice things and the nice things be expensive and the cheap cards be cheap? Like, why can't we just have this simple Kaladesh masterpiece system?
Because if you're average dipshit McGillicuddy buying packs at a Target, you have to open something cool in most of your packs or you'll stop buying packs. Masterpieces didn't make anybody happy. Like, if I bought a pack at Target, I wasn't going to get a masterpiece, but like my friend, you know, who happened to get the one that was in that shipment to Walmart that week gets it. I go buy 5 more packs and don't get one. I'm going to be like, well, this kind of sucks. This is expensive. But like, if every pack has something special about it, or there's a dozen different products that all have something cool, not necessarily good or valuable, but cool, then I'll probably buy more. It's part of why Pokemon puts so many promos, like just like a random Bulbasaur or Pikachu, into their products, is because if I'm just going to sort of buy some packs and I get nothing good, at least I got a Bulbasaur and I'll feel good about that.
And it does feel good to open. I don't remember what set it was. I mean, for me, it was a bit of a feel bad in the way it played out, but I got a full art Coiling Oracle foil, and with the new art, right, in whatever promo that was of some number of sets ago. Right?
It was the borderless Double Masters version.
Sure. I thought that was really neat, and I was like, "Holy shit, this is so cool!" And then I looked it up, and it was worth like $2, and I cried. Okay, but if you're the average player who goes to Target and opens that up, and you're like, "Hey, Coiling Oracle's a cool card," you're probably not pulling out your phone to scan it on TCG Player and basing your opinion on that. Probably just happy to have the cool Coiling Oracle.
And to be clear, all the defenses I just gave of the system were not necessarily defenses, they were more just explanations.
Yeah.
I don't love this either, but like, the reason WotC's doing it is because their market research shows that it makes them more money or something.
Yes.
I mean, DJ, I do think like someone at Wizards of the Coast, if I were in the room of some of these meetings, someone probably does need to stand up and say, why does it need to be this complicated? And they need to get an answer, and that answer should probably be able to be condensed down to something that isn't 47 pages long.
I fully understand the possibility that this is just that this exists because somebody needed like to fulfill their hours of quota at their workplace. Like they were done with all of their work on Tuesday, and then they stared at their monitor sweating because there was a board meeting coming up on Thursday, and they're like, I need to have something to talk about, to just word vomit about. And this is just the nightmarish hellspawn of that. Like, that is, I understand that as a possibility.
I don't know. I do know that it can feel that way when there's what it does feel like. It's like at some point they split up the draft booster team from the collector booster team from the set booster team, and then each group split itself up another 6 ways. So it's like that's how you get the 1 million mismatches they have now. So I mean, there probably is going to be a product realignment in the future, right? Just you can't keep going at this rate.
There's also sort of the question of, this might be going down a slightly different path, but like the game Yu-Gi-Oh! Is kind of running out of design space. Like, they've kind of backed themselves into a corner with their game system. And I think Magic, if you asked me 5 years ago, I would say they're very far from that happening, but at the rate we're just designing new cards, I really feel like, I'm not saying it's close, I'm not saying it's in danger of being close, but at what point does it become a problem of just like, how do you make compelling new cards when the most, everything's been done? And it might never become an issue, but it's something that I do worry about occasionally, is will Magic run out of design space?
With
I think one of the solutions to that is fundamental rule changes.
Sure.
That Magic has not even begun to dip its toes into. You can, the Ikoria companion things notwithstanding, but just things like mana burn and just fundamental rule changes of like mulligan rules and just things like, oh, the game works like this now, and just minor tweaks that impact a wide swath of cards and just allow for a floodgate of design space. Because Yu-Gi-Oh! Has ripped that band-aid off 10 or 15 years ago of like, sorry guys, like, these cards don't work like this anymore. We're doing this for the longevity of the game, and all of your cards this ATB trigger just fundamentally works differently now. Deal with it.
Sure.
I think the churn rate in Magic design is exponentially higher than it used to be. Think about it.
Yes, for sure.
We used to have 4 sets a year. One of them was a core set with no innovation. The other 3 would give you 1 to 2 or maybe 3 new mechanics. And then usually like 1 major new mechanic in the set. And then they would iterate on it twice more. And that was it. That was the asks of the design space. And now I think that over the past 10 years, maybe even 5 years, like I am constantly amazed at the design space they continue to find. But nothing gets to breathe. And it's like maybe that's not a bad thing, but like they made a tap matters archetype for basically the first time ever in limited in blue-white. And it's really neat and cool. That's just a thing that so I'm like amazed that they can still find design space, but they burn through it all so much faster. And you don't get a mechanic and then an iteration of a mechanic because we now don't have blocks or whatever. You get a mechanic in its most complicated version possible, and then all the riffs on it, all in the same set and or commander drop, and you burn it, and you use a lot of the well at once as opposed to iterating it over the course of a few sets. I think that's something they could have done with the Phyrexian sets over the past year. I think they could have, instead of having Proliferate as one of the sets of mechanics or whatever, and then Poisonous, Toxic, but then having Incubate, and having all these things that kind of don't really work together. Like I got a bunch of Proliferate cards out of one set for the Commander, for the XL they put out, and then the next Phyrexian set I got nothing because they just didn't keep any continuity between the mechanics. Like that feels like that would have not happened in an old block structure. And I think if you just burn through a lot of design space that way is the answers I'm getting at. Just a lot of churn.
Old block structure had a bunch of issues of things just getting incredibly dull by the end of it. So like,
it did. It's
not all roses and sunshine, but like the things that WotC's done well in this space are like giving us Capenna as a multicolor set, and then giving us Domain and Dominator United. Like that was kind of a cool combo, but that requires like a certain level of foresight and elegance that seems tough to do when there's so many moving parts.
Yeah, and I do think they're getting better at it. I feel like I read a Mark Rosewater article recently that talked about how they know that that's the thing players want is more continuity between the sets, especially playing them up. But yeah, like the Phyrexian stuff just felt like the sets were all individually cool. As an overarching thing, it just felt like they really missed mechanically. But yeah, there's room to improve. But maybe the design space, you get more power creep when you run out of design space, right? That's if you can't sort of expand horizontally by giving players new things at the same power level, you just have to make higher power level cards. And we certainly have had a lot of that.
That's part of why the Horizons... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
We're going to get down the beanstalk, and it's going to draw you 2 cards.
This is kind of like why I think the Horizon sets are such a brilliant idea of adding cards that already exist to Modern to increase the power level. Especially things like... If you look at things like Lava Dart and Carrion Feeder, these are cards that have defined archetypes or been major players in archetypes.
Yeah.
That weren't new cards, that aren't power creeping anything, but they're just like another cog in a greater machine. And that's part of what I love about the Horizon sets is you get a lot of that, and you only have 100 new cards entering Modern or whatever it is.
There's a lot of cool stuff going on beneath the hood of the Horizon sets, in my opinion, that is drowned out by the top line cycles that are obviously defining. There's just a lot of cool pieces for a lot of different archetypes in those sets.
We have Modern Horizons 3 announced.
Yep, I'm excited.
I'm happy. I believe the
I'm
only
excited.
cover art. I think what'd you say, Corbin?
I think I'm excited. I feel like it's in a good place, and I feel like a giant change to the level of elementals or pitch spells is not needed. Therefore, it makes me worried it would make it worse.
Well, the only cover art I believe we have for the product is Eldrazi Titans once again. So we had the Eldrazi Titans in Double Masters. We've gotten plenty of reprints of those guys over the past couple of years, and of course, the Eldrazi Commander deck from Commander Masters. And so there was the John Avon Secret Lair that just dropped this week. That has Emrakul the Promised and your good old $60 Eldritch Moon Emrakul that you can get for $30 plus Brainstorm Sarah Angel and Progenitus. The rest of the cards don't really matter. But if you want to buy that secret lair for $30, I think you're doing fine. And then just as a heads up, the Modern Horizons 3 is on the edge of the skyline.
Right.
But so that card might be able to be even further dropped towards the $30 point is where I'm getting. But Modern Horizons 3 is on the horizon.
Well, if you think about the Pro Tours next year, over the past year we had one Modern, one Pioneer, two Standard. If you count the World Championship, right? So, I think that they said the second Pro Tour of the year would be Standard. I don't think there's a format announced for Chicago yet. Not sure. But I suspect we'd have the same run back, right? So they'll probably time the Modern Pro Tour with Modern Horizons 3.
Yeah,
right.
I also think that it's weird because now we've had two Horizon sets. There's sort of this new baseline for what Modern is. Yeah. And I almost feel like there's more equity in making things that maintain status quo in an interesting way. Like, if you look at if Eldraine, the cards they printed in Eldraine that are of Modern power level all just make archetypes deeper.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that they're probably going to aim for in Modern Horizons 3, if I had to guess, because Modern right now feels like Legacy did in 2010, which is purely complimentary. Yes. Legacy feels like Vintage did in 2010, which is purely disparaging. And Vintage is just like, I don't know, kings shooting each other or playing Russian roulette because it's something to do to pass the time. You know?
Yeah. Well, look, I completely agree. Like, Modern Horizons 1 and 2 redefined the format, and I think they redefined it in mostly good ways. What if Modern Horizons 3 didn't seek to change the top level of the format, and instead they targeted a dozen archetypes that are sitting from 11th to 25th most played, right? Like, that would be amazing.
Well, you can even, if you give something to Murktide, something to Yawgmoth, something to Four Color, and then like a couple things to a couple of the lower archetypes, you sort of just rise the whole tide.
Yeah. And look, if there's an Eldrazi push, make Thought Knot playable again. That'd be fun, right?
Yeah, let's print Nose of Ugin, and it's a land that makes Eldrazi cost 2 less and costs 8 to tap and activate, because that was the problem. Was it
for sure.
Easily.
Oh, I was gonna say Eyes of Ugin plural, but it's just 2 copies of Eye of Ugin on 1 card.
It's Eye of Ugin that when it comes to play, you make a token copy.
Yeah.
It's legendary, so it's the same.
I'm just saying that, like, Modern's really slowing down, and if people are dirtling around with, like, up the beanstalk and, like, dorky stuff, playing your Matter Reshapers doesn't sound so bad.
Playing Matter Reshaper into the person playing Up the Beanstalk and Leyline Binding has to be the most embarrassing deck selection possible. Yes. Every time you play like a 3-drop that doesn't do something, your opponent Leyline Binding isn't just like, I'll draw a card. You just want to turn inside out and die. Speaking of which, I got to do some of that this weekend, playing the Honorog deck. And that deck is only okay. Honorog's kind of a sicko. But Leyline Binding is a messed up card, so...
Yep, that is the answer. If you think about it, too, Prismatic Ending, almost all the good effects are exile, so the Matter Reshaper is pretty bad. So that's what I'm saying. Modern Horizons 3, give us a better... When Matter Reshaper leaves play... Matter Shaper leaves play. Rematter Shaper leaves play. I'm a designer.
It's Rematter Shapers.
Yeah. It'll be fun. All right. Well, look, we better give a shout out before we go any further here to our generous sponsor, MTG Stocks, who, of course, we use for all of our financial information, whether that is Breaking Bulk or Pick of the Week, which is coming up next. We use MTG Stocks, and definitely check out the premium side of the website because it has the best tools, filters, alerts, everything that you need to stay ahead of the game in this new world where Standard's going to matter and it might be kind of dynamic and there's going to be week-to-week changes. I'm excited.
Yeah, in a world where Standard matters, information matters so much more, especially quick, up-to-date information, which you can get with the premium side of MTG Stocks. MTG Stocks, your home for premium information.
Perfect. All right, it is time for Pick of the Week.
Pick of the week, pick of the week, pick of the week. Time for the pick of the week.
I've got a good one.
All right, DJ says he's got a good one. Let's hear it.
Dinosaurs.
Roar.
Going to Lost Caverns of Ixalan, which is an underground version of Ixalan, but
Gishath.
no.
Yeah, card's expensive.
Gishath is expensive, and it can also get reprinted pretty easily in a secret lair. It could find itself in like the list version of Lost. There's so many places for that card. A card that there are not many places for is Atali Primal Conqueror, and this is the Flip March of the Machines version.
Yeah.
This is the red-green one that turns into a giant Blightsteel Colossus kind
This card
of
should
thing.
be banned.
What'd you say?
Card should be banned.
It's not Skullstorm, Corbin. Calm down.
It's where it's.
We got the reference.
When it comes into play, this is the one that casts everyone's spells, right?
Yes.
And then someone copies it, and then someone reanimates it, and then this card is terrible for Commander. Just saying.
I mean, it's a billion mana. It's fine. It's no Skullstorm, like DJ said.
It's not a billion mana. It's a problem.
I mean, buy them if you think Corbin's just being a salty little twat, I guess.
No, this card's messed up. You should definitely buy them. But this card, it's just never made a game of Commander better. And I've played dozens of games with it.
Dozens of them, I say.
In my deck. Like, I've resolved this card dozens of times since it came out not that long ago. Man, look, the internet, YouTube comments, youtube.com/Brainstorm Brewery for watching there. If you have played a lot with Atali Primal Conqueror, let me know how you feel. Because in my opinion, it just starts these ridiculous loops that draw games out.
Corbin, can I ask you a question?
You can.
Do you know much about improv comedy?
Yes, and?
What's the one rule of improv comedy?
Yes, and?
You never say no. You never say no, but DJ had a slam dunk of a pick. He said, Atali Primal Handshaker. And you were like, this is not the thing. This is immorally impure.
Listen. Great pick.
Yes, and
terrible experience.
Yes, and this boy.
Yes, you should be at this pick. And then you should never play it because this card ruins games.
We take those. All right. Corbin has had his improv redemption.
The card is reasonably cheap. It's like $3 or $4. This will very much go to 10 within a year or so. Again, it's pretty hard to reprint because it's double faced.
I agree with everything DJ's saying, but for the record,
it has the front face that you can do all these flickering and copying and reanimating shenanigans with, and then it also just is Blightsteel Colossus on the backside as a nice little cherry on top. Like, this has all of the things going for it, and the fact that dinosaurs are in Ixalan is just even more bitter fruit on top of the concoction that you're making.
All right, Cass, what do you got this week?
So, if I were to ask you all what you thought the mythic rare that was a 4 of in the World Championship winning standard deck was worth, what would you guess?
$2.
$2 because we're cynical.
Well, that's fair. No, it's Rafine Scheming Seers, like $1, maybe $2.
Yeah.
That card's from New Capenna. That card's like 2 years old now, and it's going to be in standard for a bit longer.
Did you pick this recently?
Did I I think I picked it for different reasons. I got it back up.
No, you didn't.
Really? Why do I remember? Was this like a bonus pick or something? I feel like I remember.
Maybe
I could be wrong.
I wrote about it in an article.
Well, if I did pick it as a bonus pick, I'm reaffirming that I'm so right. That's now an official pick, and I have another bonus pick for you all at home. The Wandering Emperor card is also.
Wait. This pick is only for those at home. If you're listening to the car, you have to turn it off now.
It's true. The Wandering Emperor card is
for our house arrest listeners.
Card is very old relative to the Age of Standard. It's like the oldest set in Standard, I think, right now. Card's very good, has a pretty high price memory, and we'll see play of Standard start seeing more play. Big fan of it. The card's also always exported well.
Yeah, I mean, this card is very symbolic of everything Japan wants to do in Magic.
It's an instant, and it gives me choices.
The only downside is it doesn't cost blue mana.
Well, all of your blue-white lands do cast it, though.
All right, I'm gonna jump in here. I am not entirely sure about this one. This is sort of a chart-based pick. I'm curious to hear what y'all. But I'm looking at Sarkin Fireblood.
This is the
Is
3
this
mana one?
the
M19
one that ramps?
M19 3 mana one, yes.
I love this card.
Yeah, I think it's very good. It's 3 mana, 3 loyalty, +1 you may discard draw, +1 add 2 mana of any color for dragons, -7 make dragons. The important thing is that it says dragon on it a bunch.
What's the?
And it's not a
what's the
D's nuts
inciting
joke.
spark here?
The graph on this, it's climbed up from its low basically of like $7 up to about $8.50 over the past couple months. And it just is a mythic from Core Set 2019, and that is 5+ years old at this point, and also a core set. And so look, there's nothing special about this card except that it hasn't been reprinted, and it's a mythic.
It's strong
but
buy
it's
list and a direct premium.
Yeah, it's a very dragon specific card, right? Like it's just it's got a graph that shows demand, I think, and a graph that has been creeping up over the past year. So I don't know that there's anything that's going to spike it, unless we get a dragon thing at some point, which obviously could happen at any point. But yeah, it's just like I said, this is when I'm perusing MTG stocks and I'm looking at different graphs of a bunch of cards to consider. This is one that stood out, and I thought, after my somewhat obvious breaking bulk, I would mix it up a little bit with pick of the week.
This card notably does let you go from 3 to 6 mana if the 6 mana thing is a dragon in Pioneer. So if that ever becomes relevant, that's worth noting.
Oh.
Sure.
Mana Dork into Sarkin.
Yeah.
Red green, like that's certainly. I mean, red green was very much a Pioneer deck, or is.
Once you're not allowed to play Nykthos.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
or even in like a Izzet deck, you play Sarkin on 3, then Niv Mizzet Parr on 4 or whatever, and that might be good.
Yeah.
Probably not, but it's worth.
Well,
keeping in
Pioneer's in a really weird spot where maybe it's fair, maybe it's not, but people don't seem to enjoy it. I basically see mono complaints about it.
Yeah.
I have no idea if anything needs to be banned or whatever, but like I think the DJ's on the right path there. That Nykthos is likely not going to stay legal long term.
There is a BNR for Pioneer next week or soon, maybe. I don't actually
really?
remember. I just saw something about it on Twitter recently. I don't know if it's true or if it's some people being hopeful, but
Well, that would. I mean, look, if there's a Pro Tour in Chicago, I think it's in February. If it's Pioneer, it would make sense that they took action before that. A room full of mono green, I think, would not be very fun for anybody. I like that they tried to keep Nykthos legal for a long time.
Mono green doesn't even have a good win rate. The deck's like 50-50 against the field. Like, it doesn't win that much. It just sees a lot of play.
Yeah, that's why like no one likes Pioneer, I think, right? Like it's just like meh, and then people play mono green because it just is the most abstractly powerful. Anyway, well that's we'll see what happens there. I mean, Standard's in a good place, Modern's in a good place. It's you can't ask for everything. But what you can ask for is this podcast, and you can get it every week by going to, well, I say every week, you know what I mean. Every week.
Most every week.
YouTube.com/Brainstorm Brewery. Subscribe on your favorite podcast app. You can support us at patreon.com/BSB. We appreciate
that's
all of you.
patreon.com/BSB and not patreon.com/ISIS. People get those confused. Why?
It's true. Commonly confused.
Good thing DJ's here to clear that one up.